You can see the cover picture of this book. The name of the book is Essence of General Philosophy. The other name of the book is Problems of Philosophy. So, in this book, one thing I'd like to remind you that this is a very, very old book. The book was first published in 1963. I don't know whether you can see it. The book is first published in 1963, and this is the first edition of this book. It was published in 1963 during the Pakistan period. And from this book, the second chapter, Methods of Philosophy and Theories of Knowledge, Dogmatism, Rationalism, Empiricism, uh, Skepticism. There are many other theories, methods of philosophy and theories of knowledge. So, from this chapter, I will try to talk about empiricism. The last issue uh, between rationalism, empiricism, and criticism. So we will talk about simply empiricism from this book. I think you can see this book, Empiricism. This book. So I will talk about from this book, Empiricism. And this book, once again, I'd like to repeat, this is a book of 1963 edition. So I have somehow collected this book, and this book is under my collection, Essence of General Philosophy. Nowadays people do not feel interest in philosophy, but philosophy, if you have no philosophy, you don't have any knowledge. To do anything, you must need philosophy. So you can see the book from here, Essence of General Philosophy. I will talk about empiricism. It's a process of gaining knowledge. So let's talk about what is empiricism. Empiricism is a part of philosophy. It is a topic in philosophy. So in philosophy, empiricism is an epistemological view which holds that true knowledge or justification comes only or primarily from sensory experience, like our sense of taste, sense of smell, and empirical evidence. It is one of several competing views within epistemology. Epistemology is the theory of knowledge. Along with rationalism, rationalism is like showing logic, and skepticism is like being suspicious about anything. Empiricists argue that empiricism is a more reliable method of finding the truth than purely using logical reasoning, because humans have cognitive biases and limitations which lead to errors of judgment. Empiricism emphasizes the central role of empirical evidence in the formation of ideas rather than innate ideas or traditions. Empiricists may argue that traditions or customs arise due to relations of previous sensory experiences. Historically, empiricism was associated with the blank slate concept, tabula rasa, according to which the human mind is blank. Our mind is blank. There is no spot at birth and develops its thoughts only through later experience. Empiricism in the philosophy of science emphasizes evidence, especially as discovered in experiments. It is a fundamental part of the scientific method that all hypotheses and theories must be tested against observations of the natural world rather than testing rather than resting solely on a prior reasoning, intuition, or revelation. Empiricism, often used by natural scientists, believes that knowledge is based on experience and that knowledge is tentative and probabilistic, subject to continued revision and falsification. Empirical research, including experiments and validated measurement tools, guides the scientific method. So, what is empiricism? Empiricism, I'd like to repeat. The English term empirical derives from the ancient Greek word empiria, which is cognate with and translate to Latin experientia, from which the words experience and experiment are uh, derived. So there are lots of background of this empirical method. There are early empiricism, Islamic Golden Age, and pre-Renaissance from 5th century to 15th century. There is empiricism in Renaissance Italy, and there is empiricism in British empiricism. There is also phenomenalism, logical empiricism, pragmatism, and there are many more theories related to empiricism. But here today, we will just confine our discussion only to British empiricism. That means the philosophers of England, the philosophers of Great Britain, what they thought about, what they talked about empiricism. So, empiricism, British empiricism, retrospective characterization emerged during the 17th century as an approach to early modern philosophy and modern science. Although both integral to this overarching transition, Francis Bacon, the great essayist in England and the philosopher in England, first advocated for empiricism in 1620, whereas René Descartes in France laid the main groundwork upholding rationalism around 1640. That means 20 years later, Francis Bacon. Bacon's natural philosophy was influenced by Italian philosopher Bernardino Telesio and by Swiss physician Paracelsus. Contributing later in the 17th century, Thomas Hobbes and Baruch Spinoza are retrospectively identified likewise as an empiricist and a rationalist, respectively. In the Enlightenment of the late 17th century, John Locke in England, and in the 18th century, both George Berkeley in Ireland and David Hume in Scotland all became leading exponents of empiricism. Hence, the dominance of empiricism in British philosophy. The distinction between rationalism and empiricism was not formally made until Immanuel Kant in Germany around 1780, who sought to merge the two views. In response to the early mid 17th century continental rationalism, John Locke, John Locke, who was a philosopher, physician, is regarded one of the influential of Enlightenment thinkers. He is also called the father of liberalism. Uh, he is a British empiricist, John Locke, who died in 16. Who was born in 1632 and died in 1704. I will try to make a video on John Locke, Francis Bacon, in the later series. So this John Locke proposed in his an essay concerning human understanding. The book is published in 1689. It is a very influential view wherein the only knowledge humans can have is a posteriori, that is based upon experience. John Locke is famously attributed with holding the proposition that human mind is a tabula rasa, that means a blank tablet or blank slate or blank sheet of paper, in Locke's word, white paper, on which the experiences derived from sense impressions as a person's life proceeds are written. There are two sources of our ideas. One is sensation and the other is reflection. In both cases, a distinction is made between simple and complex ideas. The former are unanalyzable and are broken down into primary and secondary qualities. Primary qualities are essential for the object in question to be what it is. Without specific primary qualities, an object would not be what it is. For example, an apple is an apple because of the arrangements of its atomic structure. If an apple were structured differently, it would cease to be an apple. That means it would not be an apple. Secondary qualities are the sensory information we can perceive from its primary qualities. For example, an apple can be perceived in various colors, various sizes, and various textures, but it is still identified as an apple. Therefore, its primary qualities dictate what the object essentially is, while its secondary qualities define its attributes or qualities. Complex ideas combine simple ones and divide into substances, modes, and relations. According to John Locke, our knowledge of things is a perception of ideas that are in accordance or discordance with each other, which is very different from the quest for certainty of Rene Descartes or Rene Descartes, a French philosopher. A generation later, the Irish Anglican bishop George Berkeley, who was born in 1685 and died in 1753, determined that Locke's view immediately opened a door that could lead to eventual atheism. Atheism means is the belief that there is no creator in the world. In response to Locke, he put forth in his treatise concerning the principles of human knowledge, which was published in 1710, an important challenge to empiricism in which things only exist either as a result of their being perceived or by virtue of the fact that they are an entity doing the perceiving. For Berkeley, God fills in for humans by doing the perceiving whenever humans are not around to do it. In his text, Alciphron, Berkeley maintained that any order humans may see in nature is the language or handwriting of God. Berkeley's approach to empiricism would later come to be called subjective idealism. Scottish philosopher David Hume, who was born in 1711 and who died in 1776, responded to Berkeley's criticisms of Locke as well as other differences between early modern philosophers, and moved empiricism to a new level of skepticism. Hume argued, in keeping with the empiricist view, that all knowledge derives from sense experience, but he accepted that this has implications not normally acceptable to philosophers. He wrote, for example, Locke divides all arguments into demonstrative and probable. On this view, we must say that it is not only probable that all men must die or that the sun will rise tomorrow, because neither of these can be demonstrated. But to conform our language more to common use, we ought to divide arguments into demonstrations, proofs, and probabilities. By proofs, meaning arguments from experience that leave no room for doubt or opposition. And I believe the most general and most popular explication of this matter is to say, see Mr. Locke, chapter of power, that finding from experience that there are several new productions in matter, such as the motions and variations of body, and concluding that there must somewhere be a power capable of producing them, we arrive at last by this reasoning at the idea of power and efficacy. But to be convinced that this explication is more popular than philosophical, we need but reflect on two very obvious principles. First, that reason alone can never give rise to any original idea. And secondly, that reason, as distinguished from experience, can never make us conclude that a cause or productive quality is absolutely requisite to every beginning of existence. Both these considerations have been sufficiently explained and therefore shall not at present be any further insisted. This quotation has been uttered in Hume's section 14 of the idea of necessary connection in a treatise of human nature. Hume divided all of human knowledge into two categories: relations of ideas and matters of fact. Here you can see also Kant's analytic synthetic distinction. Mathematical and logical propositions, that is, that the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the two sides, are examples of the first, while propositions involving contingent observation of the world, that is, the sun rises in the east, are examples of the second. All of people's ideas, in turn, are derived from their impressions. For Hume, an impression corresponds roughly with what we call a sensation. To remember or to imagine such impressions is to have an idea. Ideas are therefore the faint copies of sensations. Hume maintained that no knowledge, even the most basic beliefs about the natural world, can be conclusively established by reason. Rather, he maintained our beliefs are more a result of accumulated habits, developed in response to accumulated sense experiences. Among his many arguments, Hume also added another important slant to the debate around about scientific method, that of the problem of induction. Hume argued that it requires inductive reasoning to arrive at the premises for the principles of inductive reasoning, and therefore the justification for inductive reasoning is a circular argument. Among Hume's conclusions regarding the problem of induction is that there is no certainty that the future will resemble the past. Thus, as a simple instance posed by Hume, we cannot know with certainty by inductive reasoning that the sun will continue to rise in the east, but instead come to expect it to do so because it has repeatedly done so in the past. Hume concluded that such things as belief in an external world and belief in the existence of the self were not rationally justifiable. According to Hume, these beliefs were to be accepted nonetheless because of their profound basis in instinct and custom. Hume's lasting legacy, however, was the doubt that his skeptical arguments cast on the legitimacy of inductive reasoning, allowing many skeptics who focused to cast similar doubt. So that's simply all about British empiricism and the basic idea of empiricism. And lastly, I would like to show you the picture of David Hume, who is a proponent of empiricism, or empiricism is the theory of knowledge which must be gained from experience, not from anything else. And empiricism sometimes become skeptical, or skepticism turns into skepticism. So this is David Hume. His empiricism led to numerous philosophical schools, and we will slowly talk about philosophy. We will talk about empiricism. We will talk about pragmatism. We will talk about skepticism. We will talk about agnosticism and everything. So I hope you have got the picture of David Hume, who is a proponent of British empiricism. So, wishing you all a good health and wishing you all to study philosophy, because if you have a philosophy, you can change yourself. If you have a philosophy, you can change your family. If you have a philosophy, you can change your society. If you have a philosophy, you can change your country. If you have a philosophy, you can change your future. So, where there is prosperity, there should be a philosophy. Where there is amelioration, where there is advancement, where there is progress, there must be and there should be a philosophy. And empiricism is a part of philosophy. Empiricism is a process of gaining knowledge. So, lastly, wishing you all a good health. I'd like to put an end to my video. Thank you for watching this.